Let's have a nighttime lesson, shall we? Look, I'm in the jungle. You can see me here, I think, but not so much here. Okay, so today, why don't we talk about this idea that empaths create the narcissist? So I'm really sick and tired. Like, I'm so seriously sick and tired of hearing about narc abuse, whatever F that is, or I was victim to XYZ. No one's allowed to be the victim ever. If you're on a healing journey, if you care to think that you are able to be in your power, you're never, ever allowed to be the victim ever. You have to take responsibility for your energy. And a lot of what you do is in your shadow. So I'll give you an example. I'm gonna give you a real example. So one time I was supposed to take a call with someone where I was the practitioner, and I was driving around on my motorbike. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to take the call. And I was at a stop, like a T stop, where if I made a left, I'd definitely be home on time to take the call. And if I made a right, for sure, I'm going so off track. It would take me like 15 minutes to get home. And I'd be late. And at this T stop, I felt this really strong, like irrepressible urge to make a right, to be late for the call, to continue my motorbiking fun. I was on an island where you just motorbike, and I just loved motorbiking. I loved the wind in my hair. I loved the feeling. I loved motorbiking just for funsies, you know? But the feeling was weird. It was as if it wasn't me, but an energy had come inside of me and almost like made it hard for me to do anything other than make a right. So I completely admit that there's a part of me that wanted to make a right. There was a part of me that wanted to be late for the call and just enjoy myself further, you know, and be less accountable for the call that I was supposed to hold space for. But there was a strange feeling, you know? And so I messaged I made a right. I messaged the person saying, I'm so sorry, I'm running late. You know, can we please start 15 minutes later? And this person's like, oh yeah, no problem, you know? And they were very, very chill about it, to the point where I'm like, I feel something happening. So when we got on the call, I had to address it immediately. I don't like being late for any kind of appointment. And that was me then. Now I would never be late. Never, ever. It's not okay. And there's a whole other topic. Never. Back then, I was a different person, different boundaries, etc. And when I talked to this person about what happened, I was telling her about the eerie feeling I had that her energy from her shadow had entered me and made me late. I completely admit that some part of me didn't mind being late. You know, I had some sort of benefit, but I'm not quite sure that that would have been my choice if, like, my ultimate decision, my ultimate behavior, if that energy hadn't entered me. So we had to have a talk about how she allows her students and a lot of other people to be late in her life, and how she really doesn't mind. In fact, she kind of enjoys it. She enjoys the act of being like, oh, it's no problem. So I'm like, okay, this is an example of you creating the narcissist. So a lack of time accountability is a hallmark sign of a narcissist. Whether you think of it as a clinical narcissist or just like a narcissistic act or behavior or choice, an appointment is like a time boundary. It is an exterior in the world kind of boundary that doesn't have to do with your skin, right? It doesn't have to do necessarily with your identity, but it's something that you can work with another person with, you know? If we say 3 p.m., doesn't matter if it's like 2:50 or 3:15, maybe it doesn't even matter that much, but we said 3 p.m. We said 3 p.m. And so both of us were supposed to arrange our lives to make it at 3 p.m. So if someone's there at 3:01, 3:05, the other person's giving them that energy. So when you're late, you are stealing energy from the person waiting for you, especially if they have that feeling of waiting for you. If you're waiting, you're losing energy, which is why, similarly, if you're listening to someone talk and they're that narcissistic robot chatterbox who just talks about anything and just loves attention, and you don't have boundaries, so you listen to them, you're probably waiting. You're like waiting for them to stop talking. You're waiting for them to realize that it's your turn to talk, etc. So if there's that feeling of waiting, you're losing energy. It's a life force energy kind of draining thing. So if you're late, even by 1 minute, 5 minutes, especially 15 minutes, whatever, but not even especially. Seriously, for me, I'm not 1 minute late, especially for appointments where I am the space holder. And that's a whole other topic. So when I was talking to this person about this habit she had in her life of enjoying the interaction, of being the magnanimous, it's okay that you're late. I was pointing out to her that in her shadow, she was probably causing these people to be late. And that's because I felt that from her. And yes, that's because it took advantage, this energy took advantage of my own propensity where I kind of wanted to be late on my own. But I really don't know if it were just me, would I have been late that day? I'm not sure. Today, no, for sure, no way. Back then, I don't know. But for her, I think it was kind of hard for her to really understand that she makes other people late. The feeling is like if you're an addict of something, if you're addicted to something, if you're addicted to, let's say, a substance, which is like a very clear kind of like easily to identify addiction, is it easy for you to not give in? It's probably almost impossible for you to not give in, right? Even if you know it's not good for you. That's the feeling of this kind of what I would call black magic. It's not addiction, it's different. It's related though. There's an obsessive compulsive kind of quality. Again, it's not the same. It's hard to be obsessed with something that you just did for the first time. That I don't know if I was ever late before or ever late after that particular instance with that particular person. So there's almost no way for me to have any kind of obsession, you know? But that kind of irrepressible need, that kind of need for immediate gratification, that need for something to occur a specific way, for a feeling to be quenched, you know, that kind of feeling is present. And so if you're around someone who probably thinks of themselves as an empath, and even you might think you're an empath and you're interacting with another empath, but two empaths together, usually there's a more dominant person, and then they end up taking the role of the narcissist for that interaction. So if you're interacting with someone who thinks of themselves as an empath, even if you too think of yourself as an empath, there's a good chance they're doing black magic on you through their shadow in order to make you into a narcissistic person so that they can feel good about themselves. Another way to see this is when you overtalk. So some empaths love to listen. And so they'll do this magnetic thing. They'll like almost like make themselves negative, hollow, draw you in. It's an energy thing that they do. And you start over talking, even if you're not a clinical narcissist, even if you don't need to be that robot who talks all the time, that's not your natural personality, but they draw it out of you. It's kind of hard to stop because it's almost like a physical, like a physics level magnetism where they're being so negative and so feminine, you end up becoming really electric and positive in their presence because it's what they want. And their want is stronger than yours. Their need to be an empath is stronger than whatever you realized was the natural occurring experience. Like if you were caught off guard, you wouldn't have the strong mental energy to be like, no, I'm gonna cut off your magnetism and keep us in consent, you know? Like you wouldn't know that you're sort of doing psychic warfare here. So you might get sucked in real easy before you realize what's happening. And you realize what's happening because you're starting to talk a lot, you're feeling anxious and nervous. And you're like, why am I even saying these things? I don't even believe some of these things I'm saying. So if you ever find yourself in this kind of position, it's very similar. So an empath can make a narcissist. An empath can, through their energy, either put something through their shadow into you and cause unwanted behavior from you, but behavior you're open to doing. Or they can, like, let's say, like make themselves magnetic, in which case you become very electric and positive and masculine. And you start to say weird stuff, start to act all nervous. You might act a little bit like hyped up or like amped up, like you're on amphetamines or something like this. This is another kind of thing that empaths can do to like create a narcissist. And in both instances, both kinds of examples, the empath gets to be the empath. The empath gets to say, oh, it's all right that you're running late. No worries, take your time. Ha! Another way to translate that in my language is like, I freely allow you to steal from me so I can feel good about myself because my ego is effing strong. That's another way to translate that. And the other thing that the empath does is just make you over talk. Unless you're highly aware of what's going on, you're just going to over talk for sure. And then they can feel good about themselves. I was listening so good, and you never asked me about me. You know, you never turned around the conversation to me. And some empaths prefer this because they don't like to talk about themselves anyway. So they prefer to hide this way anyway. So they create the narcissist. They get all the kudos for being the empath. And then they get to play the victim. And it's really disempowering. And in my opinion, it's really gross. I think being an empath is gross. Stop it, please. And, it's like a shadow narcissist who's actually in control, but pretends that they're not. Whereas the clinical narcissist is just like a puppet. And they have no control over themselves and whatever. Either the empath uses them, entities use them, whatever. But here I just really wanted to highlight that empaths can create the narcissist, and the empaths can create narcissistic behavior out of you through shadow means. Okay. That was today's jungle nighttime lesson. All right. So thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.